Welcome to the Universal Accounting Center's Advancing Your Accountability with your accounting instructor, Alan Bostrom. In Session 8, Accounting for a Nonprofit Organization, you'll learn how a nonprofit organization differs from a for-profit corporation, the taxability of a nonprofit enterprise, and how the accounting is performed. To become more confident in this type of organization, you'll do the entire set of books for a church containing a soup kitchen and homeless shelter. And now here's Alan.
Tonight we're going to introduce you to a different type of company. It's called a not-for-profit corporation. Now you've heard of not-for-profits, but there's a lot of misunderstandings about what a not-for-profit is. Up until now, we've been dealing with businesses that their main motive for being in business is profitability. Now, some of them will say, no, it really wasn't my motive, but it typically is. Okay, and they're looking for profits, and those profits are what's going to sustain them and hopefully build wealth for them in their lives. Okay? Not-for-profit corporations were not built with the incentive of building profit. They were created for a humanitarian purpose of some type. Okay? And they're not, they do not pay dividends. They do not pay draws. Any monies that they bring in for their business are meant to further this humanitarian purpose. Now, you got churches are not-for-profit. Typically, schools are not-for-profit. Obviously, the purpose is education. You might have a homeowners organization that their purpose is to make sure the grounds are taken care of. I mean, there's a lot of different reasons why people form an organization to be able to funnel assets through and maintain assets, but their primary purpose is something other than profit. Okay, now there's a couple things, myths, I want to dispel. First of all, not-for-profit corporations and non-profit corporations are the same thing. Okay? So they're just different titles. And a not-for-profit company is formed just like any other corporation is. The articles of incorporation are a little bit different than the articles of incorporation for a for-profit corporation. Okay? And it's a good idea if you're going to form a not-for-profit corporation to get an attorney's assistance. The reason why is because there's a lot more bells and whistles or hurdles you have to jump over in order to be successful and to make sure that everything is created in line with the laws. So I would have an attorney involved in a not-for-profit corporation creation. The other thing I want to mention is that not-for-profit companies are not automatically tax exempt. Okay, people a lot of times assume that a not-for-profit corporation doesn't have to worry about tax laws. They do. In fact, sometimes they have to worry about tax laws even more intensively than for-profit corporations. They might not have to pay taxes. They might not even have to prepare the forms, but if they don't worry about the laws, they might find that they're in conflict with those laws, and they might have that tax-exempt status stripped away from them. So what you have to do is, when you're looking at a not-for-profit corporation, is there's a long list of criteria that the IRS puts out to determine whether or not your not-for-profit corporation is also tax exempt. If its primary purpose is religion, then it's probably tax exempt. If its primary purpose is education, then it is probably tax exempt. But you don't know that for sure unless you consider all these criteria that the IRS provides. And then if it is, then fine, you may or may not have to report it to the IRS. Again, those criteria will tell you. But the myth is most people think not-for-profits are automatically tax exempt, and they're not. Okay? So, not-for-profit corporations, because of the absence of the profit motive, have a little bit different accounting process that we need to consider. And the terminology in a not-for-profit corporation is also slightly different. And so we're going to look at that as we work through a practice set tonight for New Moreland Church. You need to understand that. Okay, one other thing I want to point out before we get into New Moreland Church is not-for-profit corporations are not overseen by a board of directors or by shareholders. they are overseen by a board of trustees. There are no shareholders of a not-for-profit corporation. This board of trustees has generally the same responsibility as a board of directors, except for they do not have the right or ability to declare dividends to anybody else because there's no shareholders to declare dividends to. And so there's no profit motive creating that.